Hey beautiful people on YouTube. Today we're going to talk about meat. We're going to talk about the modern day holistic approach to diet. We're going to talk about the nutrition of the meat you eat and what's going on with all that. I'm going to give you the modern day approach that most holistic practitioners or holistic wellness healthcare providers are going to give you, and I'm going to give you a biblical stance. So listen up. Before I go into the meat, I want to talk about the 40% off sale that I have going on right now at Missy's Naturals. Whether it's the hair growth stimulator, I'm 46 years old, the eyelash serum, or any of the other skincare products. I'm gonna do a skincare video next. That's gonna be coming up sometime this week, maybe on the live stream Friday, I'm not sure. But we are gonna talk skincare and the different things that you can do to keep your skin and your energy purified. So 40% off, I decided that I'm going to use the 10% proceeds that I'm going to give away for the school that my son attended, TK Martin. Met some wonderful people that have connections there. So I'm going to just, if y'all will support me, then I can support my community or other organizations, charities. So this round, I have a 40% off sale going on, even on the holistic counseling. And some of you have reached out and asked lots of questions, and I have no problems answering your questions through email. But a lot of the time, it does take a session to get down to the bottom of what might be going on. You might have given up a product or given up a certain food group or realized you have food sensitivities. But sometimes if you try one or two things and it's not fixing the problem, there's underlying issues, and they can be anywhere from not enough exercise or eating something you're allergic to emotional issues, seriously. So I hope that you will take a look at my website, Missy's Naturals. You'll use the code giving back 40%, it's giving back 40 off. Then once I tally up the proceeds, and I plan to run this till the 10th of May, I will give 10% to TK Martin. It is a school for kids with disabilities that range from autism to Down syndrome, and it's right here in my community. They do a lot of good work. Not all of the kids are able to get on Medicaid or Social Security, but need that type of more in-depth, and they don't just handle the disabilities with therapy, they also educate the children and try to get them totally school ready. So it's an educational program. It is a school, and it's the best one in the state of Mississippi. So I'd like to be able to start giving to them regularly, but I need the proceeds to do that. So please check out my website, missysnaturals.com, and the code is giving back 40 off. Next item up for business. I was in a pageant this last weekend, and I took Miss East Mississippi. So that's a preliminary round for what's called Miss Magnolia State. And Miss Magnolia State is second in pageantry only to Miss California USA. So big deal there. Also, I'm gonna be making a run for this Hers cover magazine. It's not necessarily that I look to win. I'm not like the most in shape or the best bodybuilder out there, but it's like 50 cents a vote. I'll put the link up on May 6th. 50 cents a vote, and the proceeds go to Wounded Warriors. One thing I want to address real quick before we dive into meat is that we are in a downturned economy, but if you don't support other people, it just makes it worse. Whether it's small businesses, whether it's charities, and whenever you operate out of a spirit of lack, fear, oh, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't give, I don't have the extra, you won't get the extra. And that's actually a biblical concept or a spiritual concept, however you want to look at it. But yeah, so operate out of a thankful heart. And the Bible says that God says he loves a cheerful giver. So whenever we think about helping out small businesses, those are the only people that are donating to these organizations. They're the only people that you're going to see a billboard up at your kid's high school football game or baseball game. Don't forget small businesses, and don't forget the charities that actually help other people. But the proceeds to voting for the HERS magazine cover go to the Wounded Warriors Project, which does a ton, from supplying emotional support animals, to getting prosthetics for vets who have been wounded, to even building them homes, to getting mental health care to the families and the warriors. So 40% off, and I give 10% of my proceeds to TK Martin, and then Wounded Warriors, HERS magazine cover. All right, so taking a 40% off cut off of, you know, it takes my profit away basically. So I'm breaking even, and by the time I give 10%, I'm giving away. So I hope you will check out my website and take a look at all the wonderful products I have to offer, as well as holistic counseling. Next, meat. So let's talk about meat. The Bible does say, and I don't know, I'm going to give you some scriptures. I'm not reading from the Bible, but I'm going to tell you where you can find them, okay? So the big controversy right now in holistic dieting is no meat. And that is not good for your body. The reason is, even though I'm a holistic healthcare practitioner, the reason is because meat has 5 nutrients in there you can't find anywhere else. You absolutely cannot get these nutrients. So listen up. B12. It's a vitamin that you get from meat, from animals that eat green grass. They have to have access to grass, hay. They have to have the ability to forage. So if you're eating, let's say, chicken or eggs that are raised in an industrial style situation, they're going to be very low on B12, if have any at all, depending on what's in their feed. Creatine, it's an amino acid that you have to have to build muscle. You'll often find it for sale over the counter in nutrition shops. Hema iron, it actually is the most bioavailable form of iron that you need to build healthy red blood cells. Vitamin D3, you know that you have to have vitamin D3. There's other ways to get it, like, you know, sunshine and whatnot. But the vitamin D3 that you get from meat helps you to better absorb your calcium. And DHA, that's also in things like fish, eggs. It's an omega-3 acid that your body absolutely has to have to help with brain, cartilage, joint repair, all that stuff. So those are the 5 nutrients that you can't find anywhere else. Well, you can find the DHA and the D3, but the other ones you cannot. So those are very important nutrients, okay? Yes, you can take B12 in a liquid form. You can get these things elsewhere, the supplements, but the form that God originally designed us to have from meat is very important, okay? So yeah, you can get them in supplements and things like that. Let's talk about the food laws a little bit again. So God did not want us to eat certain things. It wasn't a moral issue. And he warns that in the last days there would be doctrines of devils. You cannot get, whether you eat meat or not is not a moral issue. Let me put that out there. That's the way I meant to word that, not food laws. It's not a moral issue. Every man has to decide for himself to eat meat or not. Everyone's in a different situation. If all you have is the supermarket meats to buy, and you know, the meat that's just the nastiest, highest in fat, comes in a tube, all that mess, you may want to forego it. They've looked into what's in that stuff. It's like 80% fat. The rest of it are byproducts like the intestines, the skin, the eyes, things like that. So, you know, every man has to do what's best for himself. There is no moral issue with eating or not eating meat, okay? Just wanted to say that. But in 1 Timothy 4:1-5, the Bible says that there would, in the last days, be doctrines of devils that would warn against eating meat. And how you feel about your spirituality and the Bible or whatever it says. A lot of people that watch my channel are Christians, God followers, and try to adhere to the standards of the Bible. I'm not trying to push anything, I'm just trying to educate. So if we're in a time where it is being taught not to eat meat, let's cover the reasons why. Many times the meat that is being put out there is so highly processed, mixed with byproducts, and contains a lot of soy. We'll talk about plant-based meat as well. Let's talk about just the meat you would get from, say, a fast food restaurant or at your local meat section of your grocery store. Most of that, again, contains not only the fat and the byproducts, it also contains chemicals like red dye, which has been proven to cause cancer, agitate things like autism, ADHD. I think they're trying to get it banned in California. But red dye, number 3, it's dangerous. So let's talk about how it's processed. A lot of the times after the animals are slaughtered, the meat sits around for so long, then it has to be cleaned to get rid of salmonella and to get rid of E. coli. So they put it in a wash of both bleach and ammonia. Now we know, or I was raised being told, never mix bleach and ammonia because the fumes from that alone are enough to actually kill you. So they don't put it in the same solution, but they do hit it with both to kill the salmonella and the E. coli. So the meat is washed, it's put into a room where it is sprayed, allowed to dry out again, and then sprayed again. And there's some documentaries out there, I can't think of them off the top of my head. Then it's processed into whatever it is you get from the supermarket. So if it was my choice, I would abstain from meat. Not that I'm trying to practice the doctrine of devils, but I would abstain from what that meat is being offered because it is not good for your body. It has very little nutritional value. It's loaded with toxins. Let's talk about Daniel. In the book of Daniel, Daniel 1:8. I'm going to use the King James Version to reference on this one because all the newer versions have changed the word from meat, M-E-A-T, to delicacies or food of the king. But Daniel purposed in his heart not to eat the king's meat. It was specific of the king's meat. Now, whether it was pork and forbidden, it doesn't say. Most likely, it was unhealthy because the big concern was the servant of the king, when Daniel said he wasn't going to eat the king's meat, said, but then you're going to look horrible after, a few days. I'm going to lose my job because I'm not feeding you properly. And Daniel said, no, just give me the herbs, give me the vegetables, and we'll be fine. So there was something unhealthy about the king's meat. So we know that Daniel abstained from the king's meat because it wasn't healthy. So to do so today is not a moral issue, but a health issue. I mean, we could take this on a million rabbit trails and talk about how God wants you to take care of your body. But whether you eat meat or not, at the end of the day, it's not a moral issue, I guess you could say. Let's talk about options, other options. Well, let's talk about the plant-based meats being offered and the lab-grown meat. There are lab-grown meats out there for consumption that people don't know about. We think the FDA covers every base. Unfortunately, there are investors that are not involved in the huger corporation operations that, and I know I won't name names, but I know a prestigious barbecue joint in Memphis that 15 years ago started investing in lab-grown meat because it was cheaper to produce than using real pork from a hog. So yes, lab-grown meats are out there and they're used by smaller entities like restaurants and things like that. And you're not always told that that's what you're getting. Plant-based meats. The new big thing is that the fewer cows out there to get the meat from will help lower emissions, because we know that there were some issues with, cow farts and cow shit was supposedly putting off emissions in the air. They consumed water and they consumed, grass and whatnot. So supposedly it would be cheaper, more beneficial to the earth, and healthier to produce plant-based meats, which they do now serve. I saw a plant-based hamburger on the menu at Applebee's. And of course we know they're probably putting it in the larger restaurants as well, like McDonald's or Wendy's. I'm not sure if that's what they're doing, but I wouldn't put it past them. Applebee's labeled it, so I know that it's out there. The way these crops are produced, the majority of the plant that they're using is soy. So we know that soy is genetically modified. Soy is sprayed with Roundup to dry it out, of course, to kill the grass. But the pesticide is built into the genetically modified plants. I've talked about this a lot before. So the way in which the protein in the plant works to kill the pest is to lacerate the stomach. Hence the gut issues we have nowadays. So you've got two things that people are worried about when it comes to growing larger farms. You've got the weeds, you've got the pests. The weeds are killed off with spray, and the pests are killed off with the actual protein pesticide in the plant. So when the worm eats the plant, the stomach gets lacerated, and that's how it dies. So that's the first problem. The second problem is once it's harvested, in order to extract the protein out of the soy, it has to go through an extensive chemical process, and that puts more chemicals into the soy protein that they use for the meat. Then they add the red dye 3 and a lot of monosodium glutamate, which are both aggravating to the gut and to the nervous system. They are both addictive. They both aggravate ADHD and autism. They are neurotoxins. Monosodium glutamate has been proven to cause lab rats to eat 5 times more than what a normal rat would eat. So it is highly addictive. So there's that. So you've got the chemicals in the plant, on the plant, to process or pull out the protein, and then to make it look and taste like meat, they add the coloring and the monosodium glutamate, as well as, they add the brown color as well. So I've watched a documentary on it, how it was produced. It's toxic to your system. The best way to put that would be it's toxic to your system. So they have to go through all these processes. Let's go back to their original claim. Is it safer for the environment? Does it produce less emissions? No, because the plant and where all this takes place has to operate, and it puts off like 100 times more emissions than a cow, or however much meat it's producing per cow. You've also got to have more water to water the plants on the larger industrial farms, and you've also got to have more electricity that we know comes from coal, and then the emissions that are produced, the CO2s. So no, in fact, it is a big fat lie. It takes way more water, electricity, coal producing electricity, and produces more emissions than raising cattle. So hoax, it's basically a hoax, and it's terribly unhealthy. So that was the other thing. Let's see. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that. Okay, now let's talk about options. Options for meat without getting the unhealthy, just the cheapest ground chuck over the counter, chocked full of fat, chemicals, etc. You can opt for any wild caught salmon, tilapia, mahi-mahi. There is a ton of wild caught out there at Aldi's, out there at Walmart. They flash freeze it. It's super healthy. Fish is probably one, I mean, I eat very little red meat. I only eat that when my kids want me to cook them spaghetti or hamburgers or something. Because it is so unhealthy on the mass scale, if you eat red meat, you do want to grab an organic grass-fed. That's where your nutrients are coming from, the grass-fed. Otherwise, opt for something as simple as tuna and sea salt water. I mean, it doesn't have to be rocket science. Your eggs, washed in bleach, the ones at the store, even the brown eggs that come from the store, they are dipped in bleach, and because the eggshells are porous, they're getting that too. So a lot of your nutrients, like your B12, is killed in the eggs. So as you can, and that's why a lot of people started moving to homesteading, as you can, opt for the grass-fed. Cage-free means nothing. Cage-free, let me put this out there, means absolutely nothing. It means that So cage-free means absolutely nothing. It means they're in a large chicken house and they're not in cages, but they're still eating the same thing that the chickens that are in a cage eat. And it's just a mass-produced amount of corn pellets, basically, and soy pellets. So cage-free, that's just an advertising gimmick. So try to get local, again, going back to small businesses, support your local farmers kind of thing. Try to get that. If you can't, try to opt for the healthiest that you can find. The egg-free products that they're putting out, again, very high in soy. Soy is causing a bunch of estrogen dominance, man boobs, PCOS, early menopause, hair loss, thyroid issues, hormone issues. Avoid soy as much as possible. If people just understood how much soy was damaging our bodies and was in production out there, you could just avoid soy. Just refuse to buy the tuna and soybean oil. Refuse to buy the peanut butter and soybean oil. Any of that stuff where you're trying to make up for your proteins, they usually add soy, so be looking for that. Yeah, but there's lots of other options besides just your store-bought meat in a tube or whatever it is that's going around now. When you go to a fast food restaurant, now even like Captain D's is offering salmon. You can find salads with grilled chicken. There's better options for meat consumption than just what we've been raised with or used to. There's tons of options out there. But yeah, try to avoid the plant-based meats loaded with soy, loaded with chemicals, processed GMOs, produces tons of emissions. I mean, all the way around. It's just a hoax, so to speak. And a lot of your plant-based diets will not give you the nutrients that you need or the protein that you need to sustain healthy life. When you forego meat, you end up with a protein deficit. It will cause hair loss, it will cause tooth loss, it will cause tooth decay, it will cause your muscles to deteriorate. So there are good options for meat out there. You don't have to go the traditional route. Don't fall into the hoaxes. You have to kind of be someone who's willing to peel back the label and do a little research for yourself. But there are some good options out there. It's not healthy to avoid meat, but I get that most of the meat being offered out there is very unhealthy. So you just kind of have to, play the game. Do your own due diligence. And don't forget to check out my website, Missy's Naturals, and the code is giving back 40 off. 10% goes to TK Martin, the School for Kids with Disabilities, right here in Starkville, Mississippi. Y'all have a blessed day.